Welcome to the Post Racing Podcast with Ron Robinson and Sean Travass. Post Racing, the site for winners.
Hi, good afternoon, Sean. Am I worthy? I've polished my head and I put a tie on. Racing, post. Well, I never did.
Autographs, £10 a head, etc., etc. Yeah, for those who don't know what Ron's talking about, they actually quoted me in the Racing Post today.
They did?
Not for exactly the first time, to be fair. All to do with their racing survey about what people like and don't like about racing. A basic question I was asked was whether I prefer flat or jumps, and the reality is I like them both. Reasons I like the horses more on the jumps because you can use the phrase fall in love with them or whatever you want to do, but you think there's some a horse comes out this year, he's an 8-year-old, he ran at 7, ran at 6, ran at 5, ran at 4, so it's like an old friend coming back out on the track, whereas on the flat, race twice at 2, win the 2,000 guineas, finish second in the Derby, disappear to stud. Very, very difficult to get any kind of amicability with horses that aren't around that long. Unlike some horses we're discussing later, actually, Romantic Warrior comes into our discussion later, and I think he's a 7 or an 8-year-old because they're geldings. Here come the dogs.
Here come the dogs. Who let the dogs out?
Exactly. She's just a yappy little duck. My apologies for that, but I can't catch it or shut her up. Yeah, because they're geldings.
She's got to be just like everybody else.
Oh, yeah, she's sending me a sharp like everybody else, probably, yeah. No, because they're geldings over there, the horses hang around for a bit longer. And therefore the public become fans, I suppose is a good phrase. So that's something that we're missing with our classic generation. But that's basically what it was. Boring. The rest of the week, as you know, I've been round, last 2 weeks, I've been to Nicky Henderson's, I've been to Dan Skelton's, I've been to Paul Nicholls, and I've been to the ever quiet John Joe O'Neill's. Interesting stuff, a few things for the Cheltenham Festival, as you'll see on the website, if you click on the links that Ron's kindly put up for me. There are a lucky 15 for the first couple. I just sort of picked the 4 that I felt the trainer was most interested in. Does it mean I think they'll win? No, it just means they're the results of conversations with the trainer, who should know a lot more than I do. So something interesting for you, if nothing else. Onwards, what we're going to start with this week, we're going to talk about owners, aren't we?
Yeah. Now you started off at our owners really shouldering all the burden in racing's complex world of finances.
Yeah.
I thought there's no real answer to this, is there? I've spent a little time this week looking for details on who pays what, when and why and where have you. And if we use the average cost to owners to have a horse in training, it works out in total that owners are paying in £316,330,000 a year just to have the horse in training. Now, that's estimated by the fact that there is a roundabout. These are all averages and guessworks and that type of thing. But there's about 14,000 horses in training. And based on an average of around about £22,595 a year to keep a horse in training, some trainers will charge less, some trainers will charge more. You multiply that by the 14,000 and you get that £316 million figure. Now, in 2014, it was estimated that the bookmakers would have to pay in around about 315 million for media rights. And obviously then when you add things like sponsorship and advertising and that sort of thing, it rises to around about 350 million. So that's inferring that the bookmakers are paying around about 35 million pound a year more into racing than the owners. But then the bookmakers don't put that money in and forget about it. They're putting that money in to make a profit. They're putting that money in to get that money back and a little bit more. Whereas the owners who are ploughing in the 316 plus million every year very rarely see any of that back. There's only one horse can win a race, and the prize money itself on a daily basis is naff, to put it politely. You've got to win around about 6 or 7 races a season now just to try and break even. It was supposed to be 2 or 3 when the levy was set up. Now, I'm quote Mark Johnson going back to 2013 when I met him at Wolverhampton after his horse had beaten ours. It was called Broxbourne, was beating Rosie's Lady, and that was the fifth race on the bounce. His horse had won, and it still hadn't covered its training fees, and that was 2013. So what the situation's like now, I haven't got a clue. when you look at the add-on expenses that owners incur, I remember, and I'm going back about 10 years now, we'd gone down to see a trainer with the intention of buying a horse. And I looked at it and it looked like it had been dragged through a hedge backwards. So I said, yeah, I'm interested, but I'm going to get it vetted. They hit. I had to peel them off the roof. What do you want to do that for? What? I said, I'm getting it vetted because it's not my money. It's my members' money that we're investing in your horse. The vet cost me 700 quid for a 2-hour visit, which did include an on-site x-ray. But it confirmed what I was thinking, that there was an issue with the horse. I found it kissing spine. The way I looked at it was, I'd saved myself 25 grand because that's how much the horse was going to cost.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not just the training fees. You've got the cost of the horse to begin with. If you decide, like I do, that you're going to have it vetted before you pay the money, that's another expense. Sure. And this 22 grand doesn't include, this 22 grand average for training fees doesn't include your vet bills. It doesn't include your diesel to get a horse to a track. It doesn't include the cost of the staff that have to go in the van with the horse to stables at the racecourse. And then it doesn't also, and I've had these bills, trust me, when you have an overnight stop, as we did at Wolverhampton, because we raced twice in 3 days with Rosie's Lady, you then have to pay for their fees for being put up overnight. I would suggest that not only are owners seriously, heavily invested in what goes on in horse racing, it's like Dan Skelton said in his article this week, quite frankly, without them, we don't exist.
Yeah, I'm not coming at this from an angle to disagree. I don't think that owners get a good deal at all. I think they do pay more than their fair share. Yep. I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with some of the publicity which sort of implies they're the be-all and end-all and the only loss leaders in the sport. And I'm going to come back and say it's not the bookmakers, it's the punters who pay it all. 72.7 million from the levy to racing in 2025. Well, that comes out of the bookmakers' pockets. Do you think they take it out of their own wallet and pay it, or do you think they might fine tweak the odds to make sure that they get the money back? So
of course they do.
That's coming out of the punters' pockets. Their profits, as I said earlier before we came on there, rarely dip, regardless of the changes in turnover. So they tweak whatever they need to tweak to keep their profit at the appropriate level, and will continue to do so. Now, I looked at this Saturday's racing. I'm assuming no abandonments. Total of 35 races in the United Kingdom, 34 are sponsored by bookmakers. Now, no punters means no bookmakers, means no sponsorship. Yeah. So once again, that money is effectively coming from you and me, who has a bet. Simple as that. The money the bookies put in is admittedly topped up by the entry fees, but it's also topped up by media rights. Guess who pays them? That's right, it's the bookmakers who pay per race. Why do they pay that? Because of us punters. So effectively that comes back out from the punters once again. Some of it's also put in, allegedly, some of it's also paid by the racecourse. But guess where they get their money from? That'd be right. That's racegoers. And what do most racegoers do? They're there to have a bet. So funnily enough, it's effectively coming from the punters again. And meanwhile, as I noticed on my tour, which is what sparked this idea off in the first place, to be honest, Nicky Henderson, lovely guy, fantastic stable, sponsored by Unibet. Dan Skelton, really nice. My first visit to Dan's yard, really nice guy, a lot of time for him, sponsored by Ladbrokes. So that in turn, in theory, keeps the cost down to the owners from the bookmakers, vis-a-vis from the great betting public. So my point is, which we then lead into section 2. See how clever I've done this? Excuse me, I fooled myself with that one. Is that the punters perhaps have something close to an equal say in where that money comes from and how it gets into the sport. And the punter is barely, if recognised, if at all. The bookmakers are invited to the meetings, but the punters who are actually paying it through the bookmakers don't have a say. But that's moving on swiftly to section 2, which I've titled "Talk to the Fox but Ignore the Chickens."
Yeah.
Carry on.
Do you want to go first here, or do you want me to go?
Oh, you're the boss. You're in charge. It's your podcast. You go first, mate.
Well, this is not now. The issues we've got with the Gambling Commission and all the rest of it, it's not now, nor will it ever be about the chickens. We've said this a million times, and we'll probably say it another million times. This 100% is about government controlling your finances. knowing how much you make per annum, where it's spent. If you spend more than you earn officially, they want to know why it wasn't declared and why tax wasn't paid on it, right? It's all to do with money laundering. In today's Racing Post, someone is quoted as saying that if you go to a supermarket and you use your credit card to buy alcohol and you fill a trolley to the brim with alcohol, nobody's going to stop you at the checkout to discuss your drinking habits. Nobody's going to ask you, are you an alcoholic? Do you have a problem with drink? But they're now asking people that bet no more than £10 a month to provide the information as the same as somebody spending £10,000 a month has to provide your mortgage details, your bank account, your passport, whether you own your own house. Do you have a problem with gambling? If you lose, do you drink to excess? Or, it's gone ridiculous. At some point, out of courtesy, they may pay lip service to the punter groups, but anything offered by those groups will be written down, put on a piece of paper. That piece of paper will be put in the bin once the meeting is concluded and everybody's gone home. I read recently that around 22.5 million adults enjoy a bet every month.
Okay.
And there's a recent health survey for England estimate of 0.4 of the population having a problem with gambling, right? Now, what the Amish out there are doing is saying, it's the entire population, not the 22.5 million that are having a bet on the horse, that type of thing. They're lumping into this anybody that's got a problem with fruit machines and betting in the street, throwing pennies and this type of thing. So they're using the 0.4% of the entire population, which is around about 68.5 million people, to tarnish the 22.5 million people. And the whole thing is just totally wrong. And somebody somewhere has got to have the kahunas to stand up and say, just knock it off. Let's get back to where we were. And if people have got an issue with a bet, then they should go and get help and be given help. End of story. They don't need to know the inside leg measurement of my dog. They just don't need this information. It's nothing. It is, like I've said, it's not to do with betting. It's all to do with taxation and money laundering.
Yeah, I haven't written this down actually, but you reminded me that someone approached me this week that the Gambling Commission has a page and a long list of banks, and banks are now sending emails out saying, if you've got a problem with gambling, because we noticed that you've deposited £50 with William Hill, for example, and another £50 with Ladbrokes this month. Now, I've argued back on that one. It's pretty much the same as you said earlier. I would dare to suggest, and ready to be shot down in flames, that there are far more problems with alcohol, cigarettes, and lottery than there are with having a little bit on the horse racing. That's my view, rightly or wrongly. And yet, as I say, other banks question if you went down the off license and bought 2 bottles of whiskey this week. No, they're not. Yeah. If you bought 40 fags a day, which at the end of the day, I'm an ex-smoker, I'll be honest, it's going to kill you. Let's be realistic. It's not going to do you any good, is it? No one questions that. And that's a far bigger burden on society, I would imagine, with the time spent in hospital and the operations with the illnesses associated with smoking and excessive alcohol. And yet they're not the things that are being picked on. Now, what I did write on this is, the reason this came up is Baroness Twycross, the gambling minister, has found time to have a meeting with the BGC, Betting and Gaming Council. But she hasn't met with me at the Horse Racing Bettors Forum yet. Now, that sounds so pompous and it's not meant that way. Let me explain. We wrote to her within a month of Labour coming into power, which feels like a lifetime ago, but that's another story. And she very politely, or someone from her office very politely wrote back saying, that's a really good idea. Thank you. We'll get back in touch and sort out a date. And the tumbleweed is still rolling down my driveway.
It will be. Yeah.
I have actually chased it as well and not received a reply to the chase, so to speak. My evidence, if you like, is in the first part of the podcast with just how important gamblers, punters, customers. I don't like gamblers. It's got a nasty taste to it, isn't it? Or it has in these days, anyway. We're a massive contributor to the racing industry, to the extent that, yes, you're right, no owners, there'd be no racing, but at this moment in time, I'd turn around and say no punters, there'd be no racing either.
Well, absolutely. They
They need to do something about it. They need to talk to the people and say, well, why are you so upset about this? Why are you so anti all these affordability? And we put forward our views, and they don't have to believe them. They don't have to listen to them. They certainly don't have to agree with them. But perhaps someone could take notes, and maybe one of the 5 things we put forward, or 2 of the 10, they go, oh, yeah, we hadn't thought of that. That's not a bad idea, that at all. Let's go and have a look and see if that would work. But that only happens if we get to have a meeting. We could send them reams of paperwork, and trust me, I won't go into details yet, but we've got reams of paperwork to send. But if no one's going to read it on the other end, what's the point of sending it? So we haven't sent anything yet. It's there for when we finally, or if we finally get a discussion with them. But it's incomprehensible to me that they talk to the bookmakers. BHA, that's fair enough. They need to talk to the BHA, but they're not talking to any of the consumers stroke customers who are most affected by all of these problems and who are walking away in their droves to the black market. Again, I'm not working for the Racing Post or being paid to advertise them. Go and have a read on the Racing Post from their survey. The percentages going up using the black market are out of all recognition. And the Gambling Commission, when it first started, said, well, there isn't a black market to worry about. And we instantly responded to them and said, there isn't a black market because there's no need for one. Once you create the need, the black market will come. If there's a gap, they'll fill the gap. And that's exactly what's happened. And they're acting as if, wow, that's a surprise. We didn't expect that. But never mind, that's another story. We're going to finish with a couple of positive things before people think
we are.
Race. I've called it Race of the Year, ? Can I start this one?
Yeah, carry on here. Yeah.
Saudi Cup last Saturday. I've got a link to it on my bit of paper. I'm sure Ron can find one and put it on email if he chooses to.
Yep.
Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen the video yet. Forever Young and Romantic Warrior. 2 top horses in the race, £8 million first prize. What a race it ended up being. An absolute battle down the home straight. In my opinion, the best horse lost, but I would say that. It was an incredible race. I guess it is to do with the money, because the money is what attracts horses of that caliber to travel abroad to stranger climes than they have done in the past, or in Romantic Warrior's case have done in the past. But it's a race well worth watching if you haven't seen it. My personal opinion, I think James McDonald possibly made an error in circling the field instead of waiting for a run up the inside, and I think that may be what cost him the race. But that's my view on it. He now goes to the Dubai Turf, and the winner goes to the Dubai World Cup, and I should think it'd be pretty short odds that they land a double between them. But
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Did you have a look at it? What did you think? I know.
I did. Yeah, I looked at it a couple of days ago after you'd put the podcast list together. I missed it live. Brilliant, wasn't it? The pair of them. Yeah, again, if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert. Plug your ears. Do whatever you like. The pair of them went 10.5 lengths clear of the third horse.
Yeah.
And that horse had won the Dubai World Cup in 2023 and was only beaten a neck in it last year.
Yeah. So the form looks ridiculous. A race of that caliber, 10 lengths. Oh. Carry on, sorry.
That's all right. The 2 things that most likely brought about the result that we did see, and that being a neck win for Forever Young, was first his age. He's got 3 years on Romantic Warrior.
Yeah.
And secondly was the surface. That was Forever Young's 7th win from 9 starts on an artificial surface. And it was the first time Romantic Warrior had not raced on turf.
Yep.
I'd like to see them both race on turf. I think I know who would win. The market got it right. They went for the younger horse with the experience of the surface, made it favourite just. Just to add, you've been singing the praises of Japanese racing now for as long as I've known you. Yeah. And they took 4 of the 6 group races on the night. Extraordinary what's going on over there, isn't it?
In business overall, I'm no expert on Japanese businesses, so again, people can moan about me if they wanted, but they seem to set things up. They have a plan, but it's not a plan for this year. It's a plan for how do we get from A and we want to get to B. What do we have to do? Can we do it in a year? No, you can't. It's going to take 20 years. Okay, 20 years it is then. And they'll breed accordingly. They breed for more stamina than we do. 1.5 mile races are still the norm, or considered the peak over there. Whereas I have to be honest and say the Derby and that are sort of dropping away a bit over here. With regard to relevance, it's more about the Coral Eclipse over 1.25 miles, or the Guineas over 1 mile, that sort of thing. But they've got a plan. Not to dominate world racing, because doesn't sound good, does it? But their idea is to say, we're a top class country with top class horses. Let's prove it around the world. They will win the Arc, and I think they'll win it within my lifetime.
Uh-huh.
I hope so. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Meaning I want to live a good few years yet. But yeah, that is their ultimate aim, is to come to Europe and win the Arc. I don't know why, because their racing is far better than ours anyway. But they want to come win the Arc. That's the kudos that comes with European racing still, and that's something that, rewinding back to what we said about British racing, we need to emphasise that and use that as something. Well, I know the Arc's not ours, but the Guineas and the Derby, we need to get those into the intention of the entire world, and not just little races over here. That's another story. Yeah, they're incredible horses, brilliant horsemen as well, and ladies, I might add. Sorry. Four winners on the most valuable card, as far as I know it, in the history of horse racing. And they send theirs tuned to the minute. Also, I'll add to that as well, and I'm not being derogatory of all trainers, because I've been lucky enough to talk to some this week, as you know, or last week, whatever it was. They're really good with the media. They're laughing and joking, and they'll tell you the truth. There's no question mark about, are they hiding something? Is there a horse on the gallops that they don't want to mention to anybody, just in case it goes and wins and the owners can't get their money down? There's none of that kind of thing at all. They will be completely straight with you. He didn't work very well last week, but I'm hoping he'll work well this week, and I'll let you know tomorrow because he's working again. And then they'll tell you the truth when he comes back from that work as well. There's absolutely no messing about whatsoever. They will tell you the truth, and that's a breath of fresh air as well. But
the problem this side is that we're still like the Spibs of racing, if you want. It's like I pointed out to you a gamble that's going on tonight, this morning. 33-1 into 6-1, and the gamble only started at around about 10-10, and by 10:15 it had gone from 33-1 to 6-1. I put it in the update newsletter for anybody that's got it and wants to read it. Now, whether the horse wins or not is irrelevant. It's the jiggery pokery that is, let's say, it's implied by the fact that you need a handicap mark to get into a handicap, and they've run it 3 times. It's finished 7th on all 3 previous outings. Going off at 25-1 and 33-1 and 16-1. And now all of a sudden, because it's got its handicap mark, it's rated lower than 50. And it's like I said in the newsletter, I'd be racing 55. And you think to yourself, there's something going on. Now, it's like you say, when you talk to a Japanese owner or a Japanese trainer, they'll say, this is the race we're going for. This is the horse we're going for with it. He's working like a train. He's doing this. He's everything we want him to be. Over there, well, you speak to a jockey after a race, and it's like, oh, what can I actually say here? You know, it's so much cloak and dagger. It's ridiculous. And so that, I mean, I don't mind, because it means I've got to sit here and try and work it out for everybody else, just like you have at your end. But I'd much rather be able to say to the members, well, such and such a trainer has said this horse is going for that race because his target is that race. He needs to win that race and that race. And that's what's going to happen. It's like several years ago, and I worked this out myself. There was a race at Glorious Goodwood that Mark Johnson needed. Well, he didn't need to win. He wanted to win. But for the horse to get qualified, it had to have won at listed or better.
Right.
And so he sent it for a race in Germany that would have been like a class 3 handicap in this country, and it was a group 2, sorry. And it won by 3 or 4 lengths, got its entry into the race at Goodwood and won the race. And now I was able to point that out to members 2 weeks before it went to Germany, let alone Goodwood, that was what was going on. But Mark Johnson would never have told you that was what was going on.
Because the owners, the implication is the owners want to get a bet on, I suppose.
Exactly,
With the tote monopoly that you can still get a bet on first. Firstly, you can still get a bet on, and secondly, the bet affects your own price anyway. There's no starting price; it's just what the price is at the off. So I guess that encourages. I'd like to add as well, when you look at Forever Young winning that race, by the way, they have very few dirt races in Japan. He's not considered he wasn't considered a particularly brilliant horse back in Japan because he only runs on dirt.
Was that only his second Group 1? Was that only his second Group 1 win, or is just his second on the bounce?
He won the Group 3, I think it is, Derby before that. The Derby at Saudi last year when I was there. They didn't let me go here. They didn't like me this year, but never mind. That's another story. Strange old world, eh? Yeah, he won that one. Yeah, won a Group 1 before that. But it's only his second Grade 1. Yeah, he won a Grade 1 at Ohio. Yeah, they don't have that many dirt races over there, so it's. My point is, it's probably not even one of their better horses.
No.
Which I won't say that too loud because I'll be running into the trainer. So he probably won't be best pleased with that comment. But that's the thought process in Japan. If he's any good, he'll be on the grass.
Yeah.
That's pretty much their attitude, and I think that will continue. But that's how good they are. That's all we can add to that. One last thing as well. You can pronounce this guy's name and start with this one. Employee of the Year at the Godolphin sponsored Thoroughbred.
Yes, Simone Maloney. He was actually he was the groom responsible for what was that good mare of Henderson's that won the Mare's Head, or Mary's Rock?
Yeah.
He was actually part of the team that nursed this horse back to health all those years ago. He's still at Henderson's now. He's just been named Employee of the Year at the Godolphin Thoroughbred Industry Employee Awards, and he also won the Rider and Groom Award too.
Yeah.
Got 30,000 quid for that. Half of that is shared between the other members of staff in the yard, which I think is brilliant. What I was wondering about when you first sent this through, I thought, is this basically more back patting for the bigger yards? So I had a look at the nominees, and there was a lady there called Sarah MacDonald who works for Julia Fielden, and she was also in there with the shout. So it's not just the big yards; it's stable staff everywhere. I've got to be in my bonnet about stable staff and owners. Let's go back to owners for a sec. I think it does my nut in this. And when we watch racing on a TV, and a horse goes past the winning post, ridden by, trained by, get a mention. But the owner and the groom very rarely get a name check. When Rosie's Lady was winning her races at Wolverhampton, nobody mentioned the name of the owner post-racing, the charity horse. Nobody ever came and said to me, what's all this about? It was trained by David O'Mara, ridden by Danny Tudor. End of. Now, on a Saturday, on ITV, and fair play to them, what they do is, when the lad or lass is leading in the winner of the big race, they make sure they get them on microphone and have a little chat to them. And I think that is absolutely brilliant. That there should be more attention paid to the people who actually work with the horses every single day of the week. Go in there with a shovel and muck the place out.
Yeah.
Brush the horse, wash the horse down, ride it on the gallops, and not just the guy who's on it for 5 minutes on a Saturday afternoon. Do you know what I mean? I think it's absolutely brilliant that these awards are made and that they are now being well, we're speaking about it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I liked about it as well is the reason the judges obviously is more detailed than they put out in the paper. But the thing they said about him was basically, they didn't use these words, I've used these words, that there's no me about him. They were talking to him and all he could talk about was the horses. He didn't want to talk about himself or how early he got up or I don't know what questions they asked him, but he wasn't interested in any of that. He was only interested in the horses. And apparently smiled from start to finish and smiles everywhere he goes. Describes an infectious personality. And I think in a sport that is awash with bad news, of which we're as guilty as anyone, I'm not going to pretend we're not. Well, you've got to be honest, haven't you? It's really good to see. Look, here's a lad who basically, he's picked up his 30,000. I wonder if Nicky Henderson gets a share. He's picked up 15,000 and 15,000 for the rest of his stable, so he's going to be the most popular guy in there, that's for sure. It looks like he already was, to be honest with you. But he doesn't moan about his hours. He just gets on with it and loves the horses. And without them, as well as without owners and without punters, etc., it's all this big pie, this big jigsaw where we're all a certain size of piece, however big or small we may be. That particular jigsaw piece, as Ron said, is pretty much ignored most of the time. And I'm as guilty as anyone of seeing horses as a betting medium. And then you see something like this and you think, well, actually, they're not, are they? And that's why I love going on those yard visits, about actually not being sat in front of a computer working out who's going to win the 3:30 tomorrow. It's walking around, talking to stable lads and stable lasses, looking at the horses, smelling the smell of horses. Actually, I'm not going to go into any more detail. I actually like the smell of horses. It's the highlight of my year is going down to those yards and actually not as one, because they don't let me sit on a horse. I wouldn't blame them. I'll kill it. But it's nice to actually go and see them, be reminded these horses are animals and these people are, you've seen them we've seen them cry with happiness, the stable lads and lasses, when a horse wins, and we've seen them break down when something horrible happens. I don't want to go into any more detail about that. You know what I'm talking about. These guys and girls love those horses, and that is not an exaggerated word. They love them, and they always have, and they always will. And hats off to him and everybody else he represents as well. Anyone who works in the yard, you get your hats off from me. You deserve every penny and then some.
Do you know what? Some of the best days out we've had as post racing has been stable visits.
Oh yeah,
the sheer number of people that have turned up to those, and we've been fortunate that I don't think we've had a wet day. The sun has always shone when we've had one of those. I'll have to arrange another one. But the number of people that turn up, and not just themselves, they bring the family with them, and there's kids running around, and they have the parade. Here's your horse. Come and see your horse on the gallop. And there are more people come and see the horse on the gallop than actually go to a race course to see it race, because there's I don't know. It's just you're just more involved. You don't just get to see your horse. You get to see everybody's horse, and it's just an amazing day out. When we arrange the next one, and we get our friendly barista and his muffins down to the again, I tell you, that was superb. That Brian Smart said, "Can you do that every Saturday?" we will do it again, because it's something I have to do.
Is that not a pop group, Barista and the Muffins? If not, it should be. But it's nice for the majority of people. You don't get that close to the horses, and they're not stopped in front of you when you actually go to the racecourse. And I suspect the majority of people out there, the same as me, I get to go racing sometimes, but most of my time I sat in front of a keyboard. Okay, I work on it. But even those who are just having a bet, they probably go on their phone, they pick their 4 horses that they like, they put their lucky 15 on, they go to work and carry on. They're not really horses. They're a name across an app or a name across a website. Whereas you go to the yard and actual flesh and blood. I mean, the one thing I like about actual racing when you're at the racecourse is the way the ground moves. You know, you can feel it under your feet when a dozen horses come thundering past you down the straight. And so like you feel like you're part of it, whereas you don't get that watching it on the TV or just having a bet on your website, do you really? So yeah, going to see horses is far more fun than anything else. Talking of horses, we better find him some winners, haven't we, really?
Yeah, we'll have a go.
Well, yeah, I think that might be the right, when you see what I've come up with, that's definitely the right idea. Have a go, could be it. But yeah. Kelso, 145. Not as many runners as we hoped for. Disappointing turnout. But yeah, it could be less.
It all feels like Cheltenham's just around the corner, doesn't it?
It does. You can kick it off.
Yeah, it'll probably be even worse next weekend, but we're here, we're doing it, and let's see what we can come up with. We've only got 4 going to post, but basically only 2 of these have got a prayer at all of winning the race, and only 1, if you agree with the market, and only 1 can win if official ratings mean anything, because Grey Dawning is officially £10 better than Iroko, but Iroko's only got to give Grey Dawning £3. Now, might well do. I guess it all depends on whether or not you want to take 8 to 13, which Grey Dawning is currently quoted at, about a horse that pulled up last time out. Never been up to that race course before, and is only 1 from 3 on both the ground and at the trip. He was considered Gold Cup material before the season started, but now he's in a listed race tomorrow. We've only had 1 winning favourite in this race in the last 8 years. So I'm going to go for Iroko. I'm not having a bet on the race because it basically doesn't make a hill of beans difference to me which actually wins it, because one of the 2 is, unless Iroko stays at Newbury. We'll come on to that later. Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to go for Iroko in this race if he turns up.
Well, first thing I want to say is that, I picked the races, so I'll put my hands up to that one. But as Ron said, do we really want to cover that? And I said, well, do you know what? It's not just about betting on the races, is it? As we just discussed about going to the yards and stuff, it's about the horses and high-class horses. Yeah. We're not we wouldn't not discuss the Champion Hurdle because Constitution Hill's odds on. It's the Champion Hurdle. You still discuss it. It's an important race. So, yeah, Grey Dawning wins this if he stands up. Simple as that. He's priced accordingly. Looked very well when I was down at Skelton's Yard last week. I think it was last Friday. Looks well. He talks very highly of him. pulled up was in the King George, so a very different kettle of fish to this. Oh, it's a listed race, but it's not quite the same thing. Made a mistake at the first. I wouldn't. They haven't said he pulled anything, but I wouldn't have been surprised if he hadn't pulled something. If you look at the way he landed when he fell over the first, if you like, he landed very awkwardly. Never got into rhythm after that, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he didn't pick up a very minor injury at the time. That's me speaking from the way he jumped. There's no inside information on that at all, I might add. But he looks an absolute picture at home. I know Dan's very hopeful of him getting back to his very best. And quite frankly, he doesn't even have to get back to his very best to win this.
He shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, if he stands up, then he should win. I'll be surprised if he didn't. Will I be backing him? No, of course I won't. It's a ridiculous price. But it's still a race worth watching, because if he's as good as they think he is, and as you say, they hoped he was a Gold Cup horse, well, then he needs to win this and do it well before we sort out what his end of season targets will be.
Exactly,
it's worth watching for the fun of it. Guess what? We can watch a race without having to bet on it. You never know, can you?
Exactly right. No, I'm actually, after you sent me a message and I looked at it, and then I looked at the Newbury race, I was actually thinking, if you hadn't put this in, I would never have had this light come on that they kept Iroko in the Newbury race that we're going to discuss later to keep the weights down for the stable's other horse, who only goes off 10 stone 6 pounds. We'll come to that in a minute. Next race, Doncaster 205. We've got 8 runners.
Yep.
So you can have an each way play to 3 places. It's currently available. And you might need it if recent results are maintained. 3 of the last 4 winners have returned SPs of 40 to 1, 80 to 18 to 1, and 20 to 1. I will light you all a candle now. 5 of the last 6 winners have been 6 years old. So that's the road I'll go down. And it leaves me with 3. Bobby with an Eye, Star Walking, Golden Point. They're priced to return a nice little profit off a Dutch. And that's what I'll be doing. I'll just Dutch that trio. If it comes up, great. If it not, it won't be the end of my world. That's my aim anyway. But looking for one to go with, 2080, I'm going to suggest Bobby with an Eye. Joe Tizard trains it. And he is 1 from 2 at Doncaster with horses running in this kind of race. He has the magical level stake profit of £1. And the horse arrives having won his last 2. The 7 to 1 appeals. So let's go down that road. Just a 2080, Bobby with an Eye.
I don't blame you at all. Bobby with an Eye certainly caught my eye. Boom, boom. This isn't the strongest listed race you've ever seen in your life. Nope. That's for sure. There's very few of them got an official rating. Those who have, World of Fortune comes out on top. But she's been well beaten in better company and looks short enough in the betting for my liking. Though the trip should suit her. She's the one to beat. She's favourite for a reason. You're going to love this. I'm going to go a little bit each way. Wait for it. Balella Sunrise, 100 to 1 chance. Yep. 100 to 1, literally 100 to 1 as we speak. Number 2, Baletta Sunrise. Dr. Morozov won a point-to-point at Bitterley in April 2022 in a race that's worked out pretty well, the 2nd and 5th of 1 under rule since. Came as no surprise that she looked as if the race would do her good when she came home a 14-length 4th at Utoxeter. That was her first start in over 2.5 years. She was sent off 50 to 1 that day, which merely enforces my view the race was badly needed. She has a first-time tongue tie added to help her breathing. She can only improve for that run. The stable is in good form. And 100 to 1, I don't think she should be 100 to 1. Will she go and win it? I'd love it if she did, because Ron will never live it down. But yeah, highly unlikely, I admit. But if all 8 runners stand their ground, I'll be having 50p each way. It's one of those horses where you spot it while looking and go, I can't go back to another horse now, because what if? What if she does go and win or go and finish 2nd or something like that? And I've not mentioned her purely because of her price. Well, no one's told the horse what price she is. That's the first thing to remember. So 100 to 1, little bit each way. Balella Sunrise, 205 Doncaster. Though funnily enough, she won't be my nap of the day. Surprisingly. And onwards to the 255 at Kelso.
Yeah, a 10-runner novice that tends to go to a 5 or 6 year old trading from 2 on the tissue. You would have found 9 of the last 10 winners fitting that trend. 4 of the last 9 winners carry bang on 11 stone 5 pounds too. That means one of Van der Poel or Chart Topper wins the race tomorrow, as they are currently the front 2 on the tissue, carry the right weight, and they also arrive having won last time out, and 6 of the last 10 winners did that as well, and 3 of the last 5. Willie Mullins has sent Chart Topper over, but I actually prefer Van der Poel. Ben Pauling sent this one on a near 650-mile round trip, and it's probably easier to get from Willie's place to Kelso than it is from Ben Pauling's place, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Pauling won this race last year with the very first horse he'd entered for it, called Personal Ambition. The horse opened 4-1, is now 3-1, whilst Chart Topper opened 3-1. You can now get 7-2. I like patterns. I like jigsaws, and the Pauling horse is like the final piece in the jigsaw. I'm going with Van der Poel.
Yeah, I'm surprised the favourites have flip-flopped, to be honest with you. Castle Carrick's come into 4-1 joint second favourite now as well, just out of interest, and he's unbeaten for Alan Key. This is a really good race when you look at it. 10 runners go to post, 2.25 miles. 8 of them are winner last time out. Van der Poel's also I like a lot. Winning at Huntingdon and Ludlow, he could prove to be the biggest danger to my selection, unsurprisingly to everyone, Chart Topper.
Hey.
Well, I'll put here, Willie Mullins isn't satisfied with dominating Cheltenham year on year, and he sends the walk in the park gelding over from Sutton, looking to take the trophy and a really decent 42,713 first prize. That's why he's over there. Big money for Saturday Elsa. 3 runs in bumpers, failed to see him set the world alight, that's for sure. But he's been a revelation since being sent over hurdles. Wide margin success at Downpatrick, and then a very easy win last time out at Witherby. The point behind the last time out at Witherby is that proves he travels. So that's not an issue. I think there's plenty of early pace in this field, which I think is going to play into his hands. And then hopefully he can use his turn of foot to put the race to bed late on. Fingers crossed. 4-1, 92 earlier, but never mind. 4-1 will do. Might come out to 92 again. But Chart Topper for me. Though, I can absolutely see where you're coming from Van der Poel. He's a nice horse. I'm just not convinced he's quite good enough. Road less travelled won't be too badly off either at 12-1. That's another one to consider each way.
Like you say, it's a cracking race.
It is.
You wouldn't like any of them.
You tell me that I expected that when I thought, I'll just click on the 2:55 at Kelso on a Saturday afternoon. Like, whoa, look how good this race is. I wasn't expecting that for a second, but I'll take it, and hopefully take it.
You've even got a Tony Martin trained outsider. Yeah.
Well, you never. I'll stick with Chart Topper, but nothing would surprise me. And then I chucked in for Ron a handicap, the 3:45. The 3:45 Newbury. Well, you can wrap me in cling film and slap me daft. It's like an oasis in a desert tomorrow, this one. 16 runners and a handicap. But the problem is I've only got 8 previous run-ins to work with. But do you know what? I don't care tomorrow. It's the penultimate Saturday before Cheltenham, so we'll give it a go. I'll work in the usual fashion. Start with age groupings. You want to be working with horses aged 7 or 8. They've won 6 of the 8 previous runnings. So we've got Iroko. This is where we're coming back to this race in a minute. Saint Segal, Vincenzo, Cotmask, Bo Balco, Scarface, Prince Quali, and Booster Bob. Weight ranges next. Well, those 8 previous runners of this, they've not given me a guide as such to what sort of weight range we want to be looking at. They're scattered right across the range at the moment. So I'm looking at the market position and hoping that will present me with a shorter list. And so far, the market position of our winners, I've read favourite, second favourite, 5th favourite, 6th favourite, 3rd favourite, 5th favourite, 7th favourite, 7th favourite. I'm not getting a lot of help there either. But what I do know is that 6 of the 8 winners have gone off at a single figure price. So I'm going to use that. And that gives me Iroko, Vincenzo, and Scarface. Now, that's a Dutch I'd be happy to play, to be honest with you. Now, if, as is possible and probable, given that it's the preferred engagement, and I can understand why, and I'll tell you now why, Iroko was kept in this, I believe, to keep the weights down because he's sitting on top weight off 12 stone. Whereas the same connections, training connections, that is, also have the 5-year-old favourite in here, Billy the Real Big Red.
As I say, he's only a 5-year-old. He's the first of that age to ever go for this race. He's only had 3 runs over fences. I couldn't possibly tell you how good he is or he isn't. I'll Dutch my 3, but it does look like Greenall and Guerrero have set a little bit of a plot up here. I'm going to Dutch my 3 and pray, but I really do think that Billy the Real Big Red is going to dart up.
Well, fancy a Liverpool supporter thinking that. Hard to believe. Rightly or wrongly, I found 20 runnings of this by scrapping around to where it was run at other venues, etc., etc. Could be wrong before anyone checks me, but that's the stats I've worked on. So from my 20, rightly or wrongly, of the 17 who completed on their previous start, 15 finished in the first 5 home. 19 raced 10 or younger, 19 were priced at 18 to 1 or shorter at the off. Now that's where we run into issues there because we don't know what the price will be at the off. So I've got to work with what we've got there. 17 winners came for the first 7 in the betting, 19 were rated 130 or above, 19 were rated 149 or lower. 18 had raced in the last 60 days and all 20 had raced at least twice this season. Chuck those into the melting pot and I end up with a short list of just 4. Lamilos, Saint Segal, Vincenzo, and Billy the Real Big Red. Now, 4 isn't a bad shortlist, but I've got to come up with a final selection. So I went and had a look at past winners, and I went and had a look at the horses in division. Now, Dan Skelton's is the only trainer represented within my shortlist of 4 who's won it before. So that's a tick for Skelton. And also, Lamilos has won of higher handicap marks in the past. So that suggests that he's not badly handicapped. I think that's a reasonable assessment to make. He's currently trading at 10 to 1. Harry Atkins takes £7 off his back. I think Lamilos, number 4, 10 to 1 each way, is going to be my selection there.
Okie dokie.
Wasn't that nice and simple by the time I waffled through a load of statistics?
The reason I don't, what I do when I'm looking at profiling a race, for me, it's got to be, that track has got to be the track that they've raced on. Because it's all to do with going that way round, where the configuration of the track and that type of thing. And so I just stopped at 8 because that's what I've got. But yeah, I can understand why you'd go back and look at the previous runnings elsewhere, because trainers will target this particular race and they'll have a certain horse in mind for it. And as you say, Skelton's trained the winner before, so you may well be right, sir.
Well, this is the bit where I add in that using statistics like that my new book is out on Amazon. I did ask Ron's permission before I said that. New book, Cheltenham Profile 2025, on Amazon. Search Travass, TRI, V for Victor, ASS for Sugar, on Amazon in the book section. You'll find it. It's a bloody bargain. But then I would say that, wouldn't I? I'm as about as good at marketing as Ron is, but neither of us are particularly good at singing around.
No, seriously, what I'm doing is I'm making sure that in every newsletter that goes out between now and Cheltenham, that there'll be a link to the book. And don't wait the day before Cheltenham, because what's the point? If you look at stats, we love our stats. Then just pick it up and have a little look at it. Marry them up with mine. Marry them up with whoever you like. To be honest with you, and you may find that just like a Rubik cube, all the pieces fall into place for you. And speaking of Rubik cubes, now 350. Only 5 runs.
Come on, that's an obvious one.
Yeah, no, it's very Rubik cube to me, this one.
Go on in.
If El Fabiolo puts a shift in, if he gets the trip, which he's never tried before, he should win this. Thing is, he's just 6 to 5. He's pulled up and fallen in 2 of his last 3 runs. The front 3 on the tissue are all trained by Mullins. The 4th on the tissue is trained by Elliott. You can get around about 7 to 1 for that. And then you've got a 100 to 1 outsider that's got 10 letters and 14 numbers in his 24 career start so far. And he's got 5 letters in his last 7 runs. So 100 to 1, that should be another 0 on that. A race like this, I wouldn't part with cash. I'll be honest with you. They're most likely hoping and praying that El Fabiolo wins easy. And then they can think seriously about Cheltenham. You can get around about 10 to 1 for the Ryanair at the moment. For podcast purposes, though, I'll put up Grange Clare West. He's 3 from 5 at the trip and 1 from 1 at the track. The only fly in his ointment is he's never raced on heavy ground. The only winner on heavy ground previously in this race is El Fabiolo. But will he get it? Will he get 2 mile 4 on heavy ground? See what I mean about Rubik Cube? You just tie yourself in knots with a race like this. There's not a snowball in hell's chance that I would take 6-5 for El Fabiolo tomorrow. He probably will win, but I'll just say Grange Clare West because he's trip and track.
Okay, well, at the risk of repeating a lot of what Ron said there, because funnily enough, I read this off my hymn sheet, so to speak. Yeah, he's entered in both the Champion Chase and the Ryanair Chase. So basically, this is a test to see if he gets 2.5 miles. He's a half brother to Tommy Silver, who won over 3 miles. So there's very much cause for optimism that this trip will bring out the best in him. If he gets round in one piece, and let's say, he's pulled up, he's only fallen once in 9 races. So doesn't make him
a dodgy jumper, though. He is a dodgy jumper.
He can be, but on his day, he's as good as anything out there. And he hasn't got an official rating if you look at the Racing Post website.
I saw that. Yeah.
But his last run, he was rated 172, I think it is. It might be 174. Either way, it's at least £10 clear of anybody else in the race.
Yeah.
So that gives him an outstanding chance. I think we might see him improve for 2.5 miles. Give him a chance to get into his rhythm. Nothing needs to be done at speed, so he can take it a little bit easier and jump a little bit safer and get round in one piece. I think the 6-5, this is famous last words, shoot yourself in the foot, etc. I think 6-5 is outstanding value. And I think he should be odds on, without a shadow of a doubt. He's the best horse in that race by a mile. As you say, you're betting on whether, I think you're betting on whether he falls or not. Simple as that.
You are. Yeah, you are. Yeah.
But he's bound to have been well schooled. If he gets round in one piece, I can't see him being beaten. So El Fabiolo, for me, even if 6-5 isn't the best price in the world, I'll take a winner at any price I can get.
Yeah.
Right. This is the bit where I say Ron presses the button, but he hasn't got a button.
No, I'll press my metaphoric button. Now, anybody out there who's not familiar with what the OMS are, it's basically, I watch the markets from the minute they open, and I watch them like a hawk. And my members get to know about them last thing of an evening before I go to bed. They get to know what the early movers are. I get up at 5 and look at those markets again, make sure the members know what to be moving overnight, whether any of the early movers have gone strong. The 3 I'm mentioning now, just 3 from this last week that's gone, but there were plenty more. And at number 3, I've got a horse called Outer Banks. It was 12-1, into 9-1, into 8-1 in the newsletter. It bolted up at 9-1. That's all you get.
Can't be bad.
Yeah. Second on the list, another fine mess. 16-1, into 12-1, into 9-1. Also won at 9-1.
Very good.
Yeah, now we come to this is the pièce de résistance.
Number 1.
Yay, je suis sacré. Notice the segue there, French. Anyway, 14-1, into 6-1, into 9-2. Absolutely hosed in at 7-4 favourite. And it was also top rated.
Was it? Okay. You can't knock those, can you? Can't knock that.
No, you can't. As I say, there were plenty more. What I noticed last week was, if you weren't watching the markets, you were going to get stuffed sideways because there were so many lightly raced horses running in the handicaps that you couldn't. Well, I couldn't actually provide accurate figures for those early week handicaps. There was one day when Wincanton was called off. There was 6 races, and every single race had more than 50% of the horses in it having had 5 or fewer races before over those obstacles. In one race, there were 2 horses that had raced once over those obstacles. It was a steeplechase. One outing in public they'd had. Both of them were bet. They fought out the finish between them, and they were 20 lengths clear of the 3rd horse. And you think to yourself, how can anybody handicap a race like that? Absolutely impossible. But the market found them, and that's all we can do.
I can't argue with that. I find it depressing sometimes because, like that one tonight, I think it was, where you see it's seventh, and it's been backed as if it can't possibly lose. I could sit there for a month and I wouldn't find that. It's just,
nobody would know.
Absolutely impossible for you, other than the fact it's been punted. There is nothing in its form to suggest it wins that. Nothing at all. I don't think so. Admittedly, it's not a race I spent hours on. I can imagine maybe you look at it and it got beaten 8 lengths into 7th, and the winner's now won 3 races since, for want of an argument, and we put up a stone. Then maybe there's an argument there, but I think that's highly unlikely, quite frankly. So yeah, you can't find them. It's depressing when you're trying to do it on a daily basis without following them up. And in my case, writing them at least the day before.
Well, that's your problem. Yeah.
Well, what can you do? That's the deadlines you need to stick to. And like now, you've just gone through, what do you say, the first 7 in the market for that handicap. Well, we're guessing which the first 7 in the handicap are going to be come the off. The favourite's won 5 of the last 6 running, so I'm going to be on the favourite. And then you suddenly find it's a totally different horse that's been back from 20s down to 2s, and it's a favourite that you're correct, but it's not the horse you mentioned because.
No. Well, it's like yesterday. What I do is I colour code the rated races, as you see every day. And there was one sitting second highest rated yesterday that had drifted from 9 to 1 out to 16 to 1. And so I'd highlighted it as a drifter. I'd highlighted the horses that were moving. And then in the time between my update newsletter going out and the actual race taking place, that second highest rated horse had moved from 16 to 1 into 10 to 1. The horses that had moved and been highlighted orange had eased slightly because that horse had been backed. And it won the race easily. It won on the staff. And what it is, people are keeping their money dry until the last possible minute now, in a lot of cases. Did you see that result in Ireland last weekend? The bumper.
You told me about it.
Yeah, the horse was back 25 minutes before the off. You could have got 200 to 1. It won the race at 8 to 1. Now, we know these things go on, right? And we know that they mostly go on over the sea there. But it would have probably taken a fiver each way to shift the initial 200 to 1.
Yeah.
But they were on it all odds right the way down. There were tenders going on here, there, and everywhere. And it's won easily at 8 to 1. And you think to yourself, well, what chance have you got when this sort of thing is happening? And like you say, it wouldn't happen in Japan.
No. But that's one of the reasons with that ridiculous outsider I've tipped earlier, which will probably finish stone cold last if it finishes it all. It's 100 to 1 now. It might not be come race time. So my point being that when I'm looking, you can't look at the horses and go, oh, that can't win because it's 25 to 1. No. Because there's no guarantee that's what will happen. You've got to look at the horse and go, has he got a chance on the form? But I'm probably wrong on that as well. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen with this one. But you can't just, that horse can't win because there's a 50 to 1 winner a couple of days ago in the UK somewhere. Now that was actually top rated, but under my system I use, if it's bigger than 28 to 1, I take it out. Because there aren't that many big price winners. So
are you talking about that Botland Neil?
Might have been,
I had his second highest rated, 40 to 1 it won at, yeah.
I had a 50 to 1 that paid 95 on Betfair.
Oh, right. Different one then, yeah.
Sam Thomas on the flat, I think it was. But it was my top rated, but I ignored it because it's too big a price. But it just goes to show the horse doesn't know what price it is, does it?
So, no.
Don't let that.
I'll tell you what, it also blows that 8 out of 10 winners are 7 to 1 or shorter.
Yeah, exactly. Everything disappears every now and again. Things run around.
It does.
I think the bookies are, generally speaking, pricing no hopers at big prices. I've never seen so many 150, 200 to 1 chances on the flat. Certainly not. But they're then gathering the 6 horses that have a chance. None of them will be going off at better than 5 to 1. I think that. I mean, I've got no evidence to back that up, and I can't be bothered to find it either. But it'd take too long, wouldn't it? But that's my question. I wonder if that's what they're doing, because Ron's pointed out before there are very few winners going in at more than 7 to 1 these days. Suddenly, But if they've got the top 6 in the betting between 6 to 4 and 7 to 1, that's no massive surprise. Whereas it used to be on those 6, 4, 3s, 5s, 10s, 14s, and 16s. So the outsider would have been a 16 to 1 shot. Now it's a 7 to 1 shot. That's my view. I'll leave you guys to ponder that over your 17th pint of Guinness or whatever it is by now. And we're just coming up to almost exactly an hour. So if you're not bored or asleep by now, Go to your doctors for some sleeping tablets, because if this doesn't cure your insomnia, nothing will. And
what's your something of the weekend before we let?
God, I was hopefully make me do that. It's going to be it's going to be a Mullins double, chart topper in the 255 at Kelso and El Fabiolo in the 350 at Navan.
Okay, I'm just going to put up Bobby with an eye 2080.
I can see that.
I can't see it missing the frame, to be honest. So
I hope not. I hope not, for your sake and for everybody's sake who follows you. Listen, let's face it, 80% follow you and 20% of daft enough to follow me, but we'll see what happens at the end of the day. So fingers crossed. Right, on that note, before the dogs start barking again this end, have a very good weekend. Enjoy your racing while you still can. Make the most of it, just enjoy it. The sun's shining, the racing's good, and we're counting down to Cheltenham. What more do you want?
Brilliant stuff.
Yep. Have a good one, guys and girls. Take care.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
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 Post Racing, the site for winners.